staying the night at this Motel 6 in the town of Wells. On April 27, 2022, Aidan Clune woke up early and checked out. With the highway close by, he took his truck south on Highway 93, traveling approximately 52 miles into a town called Kery. Aiden abruptly pulled his truck over, unknown as to why he did so, perhaps to take a bathroom break or to clear his mind. Taking his acoustic guitar with him, Aiden likely had not wandered far from the road, leaving his passenger door wide open, meaning he had likely had every intention of returning back to his truck. At approximately 9 a.m., a highway patrol officer saw the red Nissan truck and pulled behind it. It looked abandoned. It's unclear where Aiden was at the time, but it's quite possible that Aidan Clune could have been close by. But because of his recent mental health issues and recent signs of paranoia, Aiden may have saw the trooper with their lights on and may have thought he was in trouble and perceived the trooper as a threat, and the only way to safety was to travel into the vast Nevada desert. Aiden would never return back to his truck that day, nor did he make any contact with anyone. Until the following day, Aidan Clune was declared missing. Search and rescue would be disbanded the following days into the vast desert valley of Kery, Nevada. They would soon find Aiden's tracks leading from where the truck was parked, leading away into the vast desert. Not far from his truck, search and rescue found his acoustic guitar laying in the desert sand. Along with the guitar, more footprints were discovered. They led over what is known as the Palomino Ridge. Aiden was wearing Nike Air Force shoes that had a unique peanut shape and circular shapes on the tread. This was helpful to track, as these were not the average type of footwear one would normally wear in an environment like this. They would track Aiden over the Palomino Ridge into a wide valley. Beyond this valley was the Cherry Creek mountain range, full of brush, heavily wooded areas, unforgiving ridges and peaks. As they continued following his tracks, they noticed some were odd and different to others. They realized that he would take off his shoes and either go barefoot or leave his socks on and walk for a bit, as his tracks changed due to this factor. Furthermore, his tracks would come to a T shape, meaning he'd walk a while, then stop, go left for a bit, then double back on his tracks, which meant it's likely Aiden was trying to throw off anyone who would track him. Even though search and rescue were days behind Aiden, it shows the mental state and possible paranoia Aiden could have been experiencing as he traveled deeper into the unknown and unforgiving mountain range. Search and rescue would eventually track Aiden into this valley south of what is called the burn area. They would lose his tracks after a while, or the weather would get too bad to track, and so they would get more and more behind as days passed on. But eventually they would pick up Aiden's tracks again and followed them into this particular valley that had a creek with fresh water that flows down the mountain into the valley for the livestock. Search and rescue found many tracks wandering all around this valley, some where Aiden was wearing shoes and others where he was barefoot. They would eventually find some tracks leading from the valley west up a steep ridge. From here, they found the last tracks, almost like he was circling a tree, just as signs of Aiden's tracks were plentiful and his presence known. It's as if the vast mountain range of Cherry Creek swallowed them up without cause. Aiden now became a ghost, uprooted from the earth, and now the only signs he was ever there was a few photos taken by search and rescue of his tracks. Alright, let me get that turned up so you guys can hear me. Welcome everybody, thank you guys so much for tuning in. Let me make sure my settings are working. Mic check, mic check. Let's see, perfect, awesome. Adjust this just a little bit. Perfect. All right, once again, thank you guys so much for tuning in. Today we're going to be covering the Aidan Clune case. As you guys know, or most of you know, we've been out there searching for him relentlessly. And of course, recently we found the first evidence in 2 years, first physical evidence in this case, and that was his pair of shoes. It was a huge find. That was a little over a week ago. And since then, we've been going out and continuing to search and knock off a lot of areas, crossing off, major areas. And so we're going to be talking about that. Of course, we just went out there, did a 2-day thing over the weekend. I had to take a few days off after that because it was up in the upper 90s. And of course, we were actually doing the peak. So it felt like it was well over 100 degrees. And I definitely got way too much sun. I don't think I got a heat stroke, but it felt like I clearly just got way too much sun, and it just wiped me out. But we learned a lot when we did that search, and by doing that, crosses off a huge portion of the areas that we need to search, because the shoes are now basically ground zero in this case. So we'll talk about that here in just a minute, show you guys what we've covered. I have kind of a map and a grid showing what we have covered, and you guys are going to be quite surprised of how much we have covered. And this is just on foot. I would say with my drone, I probably covered easily 60%, if not more, in a 1 mile radius of where he's at. So it is literally just a matter of days before we find answers. So, but before I get too ahead of myself, we always like to give back by featuring the missing. This was requested by Tom. I'm sure most of you guys know Tom. Tom N, amazing supporter. And he wanted me to feature this guy. This is Zachary Kery. He went missing, let's see, in Evansville, Indiana, I believe. Let's see. So it says there's been no word from 38-year-old Zachary Kery since May 30th, and that's from last year. So it looks like he's been missing just over a year now, sadly. Family members say the Evansville man was dropped off in Linville welcome sign. At the Linville welcome sign. 5 days later, his phone was found in the same spot. They say it's common for him to go camping in the woods for a few days, but he always comes back home. Sheriff Wilder says cadaver dogs and drones were used to look for Kery, but nothing was found. 6 weeks later, the family is still hoping he'll come back home. See if there's anything else. Kery's cell phone was discovered near the sign where he was dropped off, though Sheriff Wilder says they aren't giving up hope. With this type of heat, this type of weather conditions, we feel like someone should have seen him by now or heard from him. Let's see. So let me just pull up his little poster here, and then we'll get into Aiden. But again, this is Zachary Kery, 38 years old. Let me blow this up real quick. 5'5", 250 to 280 pounds, dark brown receding hairline, green eyes, last seen wearing a black zip-up jacket with white letters on the back, blue jeans, silver chain necklace, brown boots with steel toe. It's got a neck tattoo that says Laura. Last seen off Highway 68 near the Welcome to Linville sign, maybe in Vanderburgh or Dell area or Lincoln State Park, and that's in Indiana. So anyway, I hope hopefully they get answers. Unfortunately, we can only work on one case at a time, but it'd be interesting to check into that case. But let's get back to Aiden. Let me check chat here and kind of talk about our recent travels and kind of explain where we're at. And again, I cannot say how close we are to finding Aiden. I really believe it's just a matter of one or two more trips and we find him. But to go back, this is where we had found the shoes. We kind of talked about that. Theirs was his shoes. We found both the right and left shoe. His mom believes that those shoes do seem like they were, although they're the same brand, it seems that Aiden had two pairs of the same shoe. But it appears that he has one shoe from an older pair and one shoe from the newer pair. We don't know what happened to the other half of those pairs. We don't believe he had them out there with him. When you see the dash cam footage where his passenger door is open, you can see that there is a backpack sitting on the seat. So I doubt he had another backpack. Not to say we don't know. Also, he had his guitar with him, so I think it'd be pretty hard if he didn't have a backpack to be handling acoustic guitar and, another pair of shoes in his hand. I really think when it came to him pulling over, I think he was just trying to clear his head, maybe play the guitar. And then, of course, the trooper showed up and unfortunately kind of freaked him out, spooked him. And, of course, he fled the scene. But those shoes are his. They're size 9. Of course, that's something that was not known to the public other than the family. But they are his shoes. But this trip all started before we started going back for Aidan Clune, even though he had been searching for 2 years, and not just me, Ty, and many other people. But we were going to go out and search for Gwen Brunel.
A woman who has been missing since June. Crews say they found her boots near Sucker Creek in Oregon, where her car and shirt were also found. The 27-year-old was last seen in Jordan Valley, Oregon, when she bought gas at the Sinclair station. Yesterday, it was announced that Gwen's boots were found on September 22nd by a search helicopter near where the Malheur County Sheriff's Office found her T-shirt just 12 days prior. The update says the boots were found 80 yards away from where the T-shirt was found. Search and rescue volunteers also found her abandoned car in the general area just days after she was reported missing. Brunel is 5'7", about 160 pounds, and has brown eyes and brown hair. If you have any information, you're asked to call the Boise Police Department or the Malheur County Sheriff's Office at the number on your screen.
So, what's kind of wild is, again, we were going to go out and search for Gwen Brunel because at the time they hadn't announced that they had found her remains. So we were going out there. And then, of course, as we were heading out, thank goodness my mods let me know that they had released that they had found the remains. But I want to bring this up because we were going to search for her, but then they had found her. But what's pretty wild is her case and Aiden's case there's so much similarities to the case. You have a situation where the person pulls the vehicle off the side of the interstate. It is also a case where the individual is suffering from some kind of mental health issues. And then here, in this case, they had found her car, but it took months later until they found the T-shirt, and I think another month later when they found her boots, along with her socks, just kind of sprawled out, as you see here in the photo. And then from there, it took almost another year, not quite a year, I'd say more like 6-8 months, before they went back out with a drone. And as we play along here, this is where her remains were found. and they were literally from the shoes. So from the last known clue, physical evidence, it was zero point 0.7 miles from
closure for the family of Gwen Brunel.
From where the shoes were to where the remains were found. So again, now we have the case where we're working with Aiden, and of course, last week, just over a week ago, is when we finally found Aiden's shoes. So now it's pretty wild how there's a lot of similarities with the case. And so now we believe it's just a matter of time of basically
As the boy
doing a grid search from a half a mile around the shoes and then expanding that to a mile. But we're going to show you how much we have covered. We have covered a lot of ground. But again, it's pretty wild. And again, the one thing that's wild is she was able to go barefoot. And if you look at the videos of the terrain where Gwen Brunel went missing, it's kind of a lot of the same environment. You've got sagebrush, thorn bushes, and some probably rocky terrain. So a lot of similarities between the case. But again, so here we found the shoes. Again, amazing find. But when we had found the shoes, we were kind of almost certain that we would probably likely find something, around the shoes, find Aiden. We were really, really thinking, in that first day, that, when we had the sheriff coming out along with some extra help, that we would, search around the shoes and eventually find Aiden. But unfortunately, and not surprisingly, that was not the case. We did not find anything else. Still, we're excited that we had found the shoes because that's the first physical evidence in 2 years. But considering how long it took us to find the shoes, means that we're going to have to push just that much harder to bring Aiden home. And so now we're going to talk about his travels for a minute, and then how much we've crossed off in these last 2 days. So here is where Aiden, and I'll get to questions here in just a minute, I apologize, but here's his travels. He traveled quite far. The average person walks approximately 1 to 3 miles per hour, given that the terrain that he's walking in, where he's walking up, down, steep ravines, ridges, peaks, I would say his average walk would be probably 1 mile per hour. And due to this, when the trooper had showed up, it was about 8:57. I think it was a few minutes before 9 a.m. So we could just basically say at 9 a.m. is when Aiden had likely started traveling from the truck and into the Cherry Creek Mountain Range. And so if he was going at 1 mile per hour, now in a straight line from his truck to his last known location, it's 9 miles. But obviously he zigged and zagged, so we add an extra 2 miles. And so if he walked 11 miles approximately at 1 mile per hour, that means that took him 11 hours. And all of that lines up, and that means that he would likely be in that valley at around 8 p.m. And again, one of the big clues that we had to go off was the phone ping. His last phone ping was at 8:17 p.m. For those that don't know, he had Verizon cell service. Out here, there is very little to no service out here. There's only few spots in this area that you can get a signal. And it's no coincidence that probably the biggest area in this entire Cherry Creek Valley range is right where his last footprints were at. And so that's why we really had scoured the area where his last footprints were, which is right here. And that's what led us to find the shoes. So we believe it was 8:17, and at about this time, it is now starting to get dark. Now, if you guys remember our last show, we kind of thought it's possible that maybe he wanted to go over the ridge because he wanted to, he wouldn't want to go back in this dark, scary forest, and maybe he wanted to go to the peak where there still would have been sunlight because the sun is still kind of sitting over in the west. But after now going up the peak twice now, in two different areas, we are again like 100% sure that there is just no way Aiden would have been able to go over that peak. Again, we are fresh when we go out there, and the second time when we went out, let me put that's at 10:30. Just show you guys real quick here. Give me 1 second. And so this is from the last search, and this is up on the peak here. And so we attempted to go up a different side of the peak close to where his last footprints were, and it just doesn't matter which direction you go up. It's just way too steep, and for someone that's barefoot, I think it's near, I wouldn't say impossible, but it's just near impossible for him to be able to traverse over that peak. It's just way too steep. When you're looking at it on Google Earth, it is quite deceiving. It looks like it's fairly, it doesn't look as steep when you're looking at it on Google Earth, but when you actually are out there, it is brutal. You're looking at it right now, and without a proper walking stick, it is very dangerous. Very dangerous. And you've got so much obstacles to go around. So I still did drone a bunch of the peak and some of the other side, and I have reviewed all of that. This green area that you're looking at, this is actually in a second. I'll get to chat here in just a second, but I just want to show you guys. This is this green area right here. And his last footprints were right here. So we hiked up here. Again, it looks like it's not too bad, but it is brutal. I mean, it's just tough to climb up that. And so I have a couple of scenarios that I think may have happened with Aiden in this scenario. But again, I did fly that. I uploaded this to the Patreons. I will get this to the members as well. But if you want to check that out, there's a lot of footage of the peak area. But now doing that twice, I think we are 100% sure, between the energy and the fact that he's barefoot now, he would not be able to manage to get over that peak. So now I'm going to show you how much we have crossed off. And it is a lot. So I'm going to leave that up, and let me get to chat for just a minute here. Clad, Aiden was at the age to be developing schizophrenia. Caleb Harris was also at the same age, but don't know if his case could really bear resemblance to a young adult suffering schizo. Yeah, we don't know, Clad. Unfortunately, we know that he was suffering from some paranoia. I have dealt with somebody that has suffered with bipolar and schizophrenia, and woof, it is tough. But yeah, unfortunately, yeah, we don't know what his mental state, other than, unfortunately, he was not in his right mind. Sensei gifting one mob crew membership. Thank you so, so much, Sensei. That is so sweet. Connie, thank you so much earlier for the $20, and I'll try to get to some people. But let me talk about what we did these last 2 days and what we have left. So, actually, I'm going to use the actual map here. And let me just show you guys what we have done and where I think we're at. So again, his last footprints were here. We know that there's this area right here where you get a cell phone ping. So that's how we were able to kind of narrow down that area. And that's where and how we found the shoes. So now going up to this ridge multiple times now, up to the peak, and it don't matter what side you take, anywhere, it is very, very steep, very dangerous. It is brutal. And unfortunately, when we did it this last weekend, it was upper 90s. It felt like 100 degrees. I think we all kind of overdid ourselves, but still, we did it, and I was able to get a lot of droning, but I didn't see anything, and after climbing it for a second time, I don't think he would have been able to do that, especially if he doesn't have his shoes, because there's a lot of areas where you're working with, like, rocky shoals where it... You go to step and you just lose your footing because stuff is sliding down, and it's just very dangerous. So in my opinion, right here, what we have is we have the half-mile ring, and then we have the 1 mile ring. Keep in mind that they had found Gwen Brunel's remains 0.7 miles, so that's just a little bit beyond the 0.5 mile ring that we have here. But in my opinion, we can literally knock off this entire area, because I do not think at that point at 8 p.m. he had the energy or the right equipment, because he didn't have his shoes, to be able to traverse up that peak. There's just no way. I think if he did attempt to, we would have found him somewhere not far within this area. And I scanned everything with the drone here, because this is all open area and I didn't see anything. So that really, if you think about it, that really crosses off almost like 50%. And that's huge. So here is some of the other searches that we have done throughout these past 2 months. Of course, when we found the shoes, we did a lot of searching around the shoes. We also ran down this valley. There's certain washes that kind of go through, and we'd follow them to the road. And again, for those that may be newer to the channel, there's another thing that we've been doing, and that is because when it comes to the prior searches with law enforcement, because they just didn't have enough manpower, they weren't really grid searching. They were really searching like main roads. They would pick up his tracks. And then when they lose them, they would kind of do kind of big areas, but they weren't ever actually doing grid searches. And this is where what we've been doing for the last 2 months is actually grid searching. We have been going not quite shoulder to shoulder, but we have been going, about 10 feet apart. And we are literally tying off these, it's biodegradable tape. So it's not going to harm the environment. And what we do is we tie them off on the trees. And we have a heading that we go in. And basically, just about every other tree, I tie off a ribbon. And we also have another person. And so sometimes what we do, if we have 3 people, the person on the flanks, and if you don't know what flanks are, the person on the far right, the first person on the far left, those 2 are tying off ribbons. And then we can see it's pretty clear. And then we try to change up the colors of the ribbon that we use. So if we go back in there, we can kind of tell that, here's red ribbons, and that means we were probably going, north to south, or we come across pink ribbon, and we were going east to west down this wash. And recently we've been doing that so much that we are now actually running into a lot of our ribbons, which is a great sign. That means we are going through and combing the areas very thoroughly that we're running into our ribbons, and then that tells us, hey, we need to move over this way or change our heading. And so this has been working out great. We started doing this before we found the shoes, and that's what I believe has led us to find the shoes, is we've been continuing to do that. So let me show you some more of the area that we did. We did this area. This was before we found the shoes. We did this big area here. We also did this area here. We also did this area here. Now this is approximate. I wouldn't say exact, but I would say pretty close. We of course also covered this area here. We ran a huge line about 2 weeks ago. I can't remember if that was before we found the shoes or just after. I think that might have been right after we found the shoes. We ran this. Yeah, that was a big day. That was got a lot of footage on that. And we've also covered this area. So as you can see, right now where we're sitting at, we have covered a lot. And in my opinion, the 2 big areas, and there's multiple reasons why I think this is the most probable area, is this area right here. In the notes with the FOIA report and where they searched, there was huge gaps that they left open up in this area here, and as well as in this area here. And that is the 2 most likely areas that I would like to search next, because it's just an area we haven't searched, and it's also where there's huge gaps where law enforcement, search and rescue, when they were out there originally, missed a lot of that area. And then I would say the 3rd area of interest would be just beyond the pond. The only thing about this side, I think this is probably would be the last area I would want to check, because in this area we have the spring that comes down, and so the cattle ranchers, for anybody that, for the members may have seen the cattle video, I'll play a little bit of that. But the cattle, or the ranchers, they bring their cattle up in this area. So there's a lot of activity with the ranchers up in this area here. That tells me, not to say that they couldn't miss something, but with how much activity the ranchers do around this area, because these are where the springs are at for the cattle, would tell me that, you know, if Aiden was somewhere nearby, that they would have most likely had seen something, clothing, what have you. So, although we can't discount that area, I think still that's an area that we would probably be on the lower end of, you know, of the areas that we're interested in. But I believe this area here is the biggest area. So if you guys have some questions, and also I've got a couple of things that I've got to talk about as well. But while we do that, I'm just going to kind of play a video so I can get to chat right quick. So this area right here, while I get to chat, this area here is actually this area. So I'm actually flying the drone right through here. Notice you'll see how there's this kind of gully. They actually cut down the wood here. And so I'm actually, I will eventually start to fly into that valley there. M. Squires, Scott, search the other side of the mountain. I think I've heard about that, which is amazing. Anybody that's been out there and searching, that's awesome. You know, I don't think he went over. Not to say it's not impossible, but after going up to the peak twice now from where his last footprints were, I would say there's a 2% chance that he went over. 2 to 5% chance. I don't think it's just too, without him having the shoes. I don't think he could have done it. I think he'd have been too tired, but that's great that there's been searches on the other side, because you know you gotta search it all, of course. Riz, when was the last time anyone saw him in person? It would have been the day prior, unless you want to say that he checked out of the motel, so technically the guy at Motel 6 would have probably interacted with him. So that would be the last person to see him, I guess. Gear Dog Pratt. That's an awesome name. Thank you so much for the $20 super sticker. That is awesome. Every bit helps, and that will go towards the search. Wow, that was a lot of coverage, Chris. No wonder you were so tired. Yeah, especially with the last search that we did. It was 100 degrees, more or less. And of course, when you're going up on the peak where there's, you know, it's one thing if you're in the woods and you kind of got the shade, it's a little bit better. But when you're out on the peak, it's brutal. Angie's, Chris and the crew, amazing. That's a great channel. Thank you so much. That's so amazing. Prayers for strength. You can do it, Chris, but take care of yourself. Bring them home. We are, and again, it will be a team effort. Chris, on the other side of the mountains where you saw the cows, are there ranches? I know there are some ranches at the entrance, and I know there's other ranches. I don't know, close to that area there is one main ranch. But I'm sure there's some other ones, but not nearby, I should say, other than the main one. So here's another look at the east. So if we kind of pan right here, this is the road that you would take. Actually, the road, I think, is the road right there? Yeah, there's the road. So we would normally take the road right here, and we would go up, and then it cuts over, and his last footprints were up right here, and then we found the shoes. Oh, move this over a little bit. So his last footprints are right here, and his shoes were about right here. But like I said, the ranchers, because there's fresh water in a stream that comes down, they frequent that area a lot. So I would think if there was any sign of Aiden over on this side to the left, that they would have likely seen something. Not to say you still couldn't have gone deeper into this valley, but again, keep in mind it is now past 8 p.m. It is now almost dark. Every minute that goes by, it's just getting darker, 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 colder, colder, and unfortunately, time is running out very quickly. So, back to chat. Let me take a sip here. I got a couple more things I wanted to address. Thank you, Cherie. I hope I pronounced that right. Texas Rose, good to see you. I think somebody answered that already. No, it's actually northeastern Nevada, but it is very close to northwestern Utah. It's close to the border. Oh, someone said yes. Yeah, no, this is actually in Nevada. This is northeastern Nevada. Very close to the border. Can a cadaver dog still pick up a scent? No, I don't. Or is it too late? No, it shouldn't be too late. Now I'm so glad you brought that up, Master General, because this is the issue. When we found the shoes, and I love the sheriff. Keep in mind, for those that are not familiar with this area, we're talking about little towns. Where the nearest town is Wells. It's a population of I don't know. Somebody might know in the chat. I don't know. 500 to 2,000 people. Something like that. It's not very big. The next biggest town would be Elko. Now that's where the main sheriff's office is at. Keep in mind that it's a very small community, so they don't have a lot of resources. Now, the bummer thing is when we found the shoes and the sheriff came out the next day, he told us that, hey, I'm going to try to get cadaver dogs out the next day, tomorrow. And we were like, great, that's awesome. We found the shoes, let them bring in the cadaver dogs, and they do the rest and, hopefully find the body. And I would be content with that. I would be more than happy, if we're kind of the catalyst to help bring him home, that's awesome. But the issue is the more we kind of went out there after, and speaking with the sheriff, it kept being like, well, we got a lot going on. We're not sure now when we can get a cadaver dog out. And then I think also the mother had, actually I don't want to speak for her, but I do believe that I think she had some contact with the sheriff, and it sounded like it was kind of up in the air, and that was really a huge blow to us because we thought, we find the shoes, they bring the cadaver dog out, and yeah, the cadaver dog, if he is in that area, they can find human remains, bones, even if he's just, and I hate to get graphic, but, the most likely scenario is that there's probably not a lot of him left. I mean, it all depends on the environment, wildlife, what have you. Typically, when it comes to the Gwen Brunel case, from what I understand is they found her skull and some hip bones. They may have found some other stuff, but that's all that was kind of reported. And that's typically kind of the most common bones, because those are like the biggest and the strongest bones. The thickest bones is your skull, and then your hip bone, and then your femur would probably be the third. But then if you have certain animal activity, they may take off with some of the smaller bones. Now, there is mountain lions out here, and that's something I also wanted to talk about, is that the cattle rancher had told us that this mountain lion has recently killed multiple calves, and he's not happy. And we believe the mountain lion or mountain lions are likely in either, so this is where they have the cattle, or excuse me, this would be where the cattle is at when they bring them out. I think the mountain lion may be out here in this area here. And notice this is an area where it's red, where we're interested in. And also, I think there's a good possibility the mountain lion may be hanging out somewhere up in this area as well. But I know he is close. And we're not sure how many are out there, but we do know at the very least one is out there. And they have been attacking some of the cattle. And the rancher is not happy. So it is kind of scary. We do take precautions. We are usually armed. I've got bear mace spray, but it's still, it is dangerous to be going out and doing this. So, but Cheryl Johnson, could you have bedded down at 8 p.m. and crossed the ridge in the morning? I don't think so, because it gets so cold. It's April 27th. I camped out there in May. I was in a tent in a sleeping bag. Now, keep in mind, I have metal in me from a hip surgery, but I was so uncomfortable that I ended up sleeping in my car, and that was like late May. So, because you're in a higher elevation, when it comes to deserts, they get really hot and then they get really cold, and it's a temperature swing that is, the second that sun's going down, the temperature is just dropping. And I don't think with what he had with him, he would have been able to survive. Not saying it's not impossible, but the chances are now he doesn't have his shoes, so he's barefoot, or at the very least he has socks, and that's not going to help much. And it's quite possible he might hurt his feet, and that's going to slow him down even more, which means he's not going to get far, sadly. But the other thing I just wanted to mention, I do appreciate everybody's support. So, as some of you guys know, we kind of had a foundation going, and trying to figure out how to word this. When we had discovered the shoes, at that time, I had spent quite a lot of money. And not just myself, of course, everybody, Ty and everybody. But the one thing with me when I go out there that some people may not understand is not only does it cost money for me to go out there, so it's usually about $100, about $100 to $120. each day that I go out there. But the other thing is I'm not here doing live shows and working. So not only am I spending over $100 each time that I'm searching, but I'm not making money because I'm not working. So it's really more like I'm losing $400 to $600 a day when I do this. But when we found the boots, or excuse me, the shoes, I kind of doubled down, and I had asked somebody if they could help me out, and they said that they would. But unfortunately, and under that impression that they would, and it would have been something, I wouldn't say super sizable donation, but I'm sure it would have been enough. And unfortunately, that fell through. And I wish I could explain more. But yeah, it was a huge blow because I kind of doubled down thinking that we were going to find him. So at this point, I am kind of in a bad financial situation because of this, because I know we can find him. And as you can see how much we have covered, and this isn't even with the drone. I have droned probably easily 60 to 70% of what you see here. But this is all, except for this is all on foot. But so with that, I've had to unfortunately resort to making a GoFundMe page. It is something that I'm not happy or proud with. But if you guys would like to donate to it, it'll be in the description, and I think it might have been in the chat as well. But if you guys would like to support that would help me. But right now, I'm just in a situation where I fortunately cannot afford to go out until I get my financials in order. But sadly, I was just under the impression that the foundation would have supported me. But for some reason, that did not happen. And that kind of put me in a tough spot, which really sucks. So again, there is the link to that GoFundMe. And if you have any questions, you can email me about that. But if we can get some of that going, even halfway, I could probably immediately start going back out. But right now, I have to kind of assess my financials. But again, it sucks because, and of course, it's at the end of the month, so I know everybody's struggling. It's just a terrible time. But I'm sorry to ramble on about that. But when we find Aiden, I am going to explain what has been going on. I've tried to take the high road. I always like to take the high road when bad situations happen, but I think people need an explanation as to what has been going on for the last year, and it just sucks because I've always tried to put everybody else first before myself, trying to help others, and unfortunately, it just kind of it sucks. So anyway, again, I love you guys, and we are going to bring Aiden home. This is just kind of a speed bump, but we still have Tyne out there. I'm sure they're probably going to be going out searching. It looks like he just called me, so I'll have to call him and figure out what he's doing. But they've done such an amazing job. But right now, I'm just kind of grounded because I was anticipating some kind of relief that I should have gotten, but unfortunately it didn't come through. So with that, Fanny Fatback, Chris, an outstanding searcher and put so much effort. I appreciate that. We will find him. We're gonna bring him home, and then after that, we're gonna have a little story time with that. But right now, my focus is Aiden, but right now I have to kind of put my financials first. So I might do that. I think they'll probably have a verdict with Karen Reed by the end of the week. Oh yeah, I guess it's Thursday. I don't know. They do. Yeah, I think it. I was kind of thinking maybe today, but I'm sure maybe tomorrow they'll have a verdict. Fanny, we were gonna find him. We love your brother, Chris, Mob Crew. Thank you so much to everybody. Yeah, we're gonna bring him home. I just want to say special thanks to all my wonderful mods, and then of course to my wonderful members. At a time like this, the support is huge, and then of course my Patreons. I just uploaded stuff for the Patreons and members, so look out for those videos if you haven't seen them. We'll definitely be back live tomorrow. If you guys have any questions, I'll hang around for another 10 minutes here because it's only been an hour, but we've done a lot of work. Again, let me play. I answer some questions here. But yeah, here is. I uploaded this to the Patreons, and I'll get this to the members as well. But this is us when we went up to the peak at 100 degrees. But again, you just can't really, it doesn't look steep. When you're looking at that, it doesn't look like a steep hill. But I'm telling you, it is brutal. It is brutal. But I just could not see anything in there. It appeared to be Aiden. And I'm just trying to see if I can get some shots here where I'm going over. So that's the peak there. But I don't think he went over that peak. And I know we said that, weeks before when we did it the first time. But, you never know. But, yeah, I don't think he went over that. And I really think he's somewhere in this area here. I think this would be the biggest area of interest. And then this would be the second biggest area of interest. And then probably this one as well. And I think we've searched some more in here. Like I said, I probably don't have everything, but we've been searching so much, like I said before, that we are literally starting to run into our ribbons from prior searches, which is huge. That means we are literally just knocking off huge sections, and it's just a matter of time. One more trip, 2 more trips, 3 more trips. I don't think many more trips until we bring Aiden home. And Gwen Brunel her family got to bury Gwen. We have Dylan Round's family, Candace Cooley, got to bury, Dylan Rounds. So that's 2 families nearby that got to, have closure. And I think, Amy, the mother of Aiden, it would be really cool. So here's a picture of me. Gail, you'll notice I got my my lovely Swiss hat on there. Sitting about 8,500 feet above sea level. Scanning everything up there. But again, I don't think he's up there, which crosses off a lot of area. I can't join all the channels so I change up, but I appreciate your dedication to help. This little bit can help get you lunch, Team Aiden. Thank you, Under Your Scars. That's so sweet. That's awesome. Molly Murphy, we are behind you 100%, Chris. Sending you some walkie-talkies for your treks, unless you have some. We could always use walkie-talkies. We tend to stay very close to each other, and we're always making noise because of the mountain lion. But yeah, walkie-talkies would be awesome. So one more thing before we go, we did a show on Caleb Harris. There was a body found. Unfortunately, it hasn't been identified as Caleb, but we really think it is Caleb. Unfortunately, we just have to wait until they officially confirm one way or not. But I think it's going to be a good possibility it is him. But I did have somebody that's very knowledgeable about sewers that shared a lot of information with me in an email. I don't know if it was Cat in a Hat. But man, it's something that I might do either a live show or do maybe a short video and a live show on, because the information she shared with me was very, very, very helpful and kind of opened up the possibilities of what could have happened to Caleb if this is Caleb's remains. And yeah, very fascinating. So we may do a show on that tomorrow unless there's something else big that happens. So with that, I am just going to make sure I didn't miss anything. June, thank you earlier for this $2. Connie, love you. Thank you so much. Michelle, as always, thank you so much for your support. And Maud, Pratt, thank you so much. Molly, Under Your Scars, and Wallflower with the $10 donation. Thank you guys so much. Again, for the GoFundMe, that link is in the description. If you would like to share it, that would be really awesome. But again, I'm at a point where I just can't go out until I get my financials in order. So, with that, we're going to end it there. But I promise you guys, we will bring him home very soon. And when we do, of course, it will be a team effort, and it'll be because of you guys. Just looking at chat. Okay. Gonna play an outro for the pets, and we'll be back on tomorrow. Yeah, maybe we'll cover the verdict for Karen Reed. That would be interesting if they do. So, with that, I love you guys. I hope you guys have the rest of a great Thursday. I thank you so much for letting me ramble on for 2 hours or hour and a half. Be safe, and we'll see you guys tomorrow.